Shawn, Lora. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you for having us.
Finally, we get to have a perfect couple on the Not So Perfect Couple podcast. Actually, it's not true. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. Everybody's got their
We'll
shit.
find that out.
Yeah, everybody's got their shit, right? I want to ask first off, coming from a dance background, tell me about your burlesque dancing, Lora. Can we start there?
Oh,
Great
absolutely.
place to start.
I grew up dancing ballet and like so many little girls just loving dance. And I had no idea what burlesque was. And I happened upon it when I was at a pole dancing studio because I love pole fitness.
So it's intense.
Oh my gosh, it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I just happened upon the class and I was like, this is amazing. You know, the irony, the humor, the removal of the layers. I thought this is everything. This is just so me. Started dancing burlesque, started auditioning, bam, started traveling all over the US, performing and dancing. And it is so incredibly empowering because, you know, you talk about being not so perfect. Burlesque it's not stripping. It's about showing your imperfections. It's about stripping down and showing yourself as you are, not as you think you should be. And it is so incredibly powerful to be like me, a 51-year-old imperfect woman, to be able to show my belly and my thighs and to have people cheer and accept you and to break out of that, oh, I'm not a size 2 and 25 years old, and be not so perfect. I love it.
Yes, so good.
It's like
As a fan, I would add that, you know, it's all shapes and sizes, but it's comedy. That's what burlesque really is. It's a parody, right? But it's there's sexy, there's funny, there's you know, emotional, current event dances that, you know, Lora did one to hashtag Me Too. It's just amazing as a fan to go and see the creativity that people put on, men as well, boylesque.
Boylesque. Oh, I haven't heard of that. That's awesome. So are there, like, where can we see you if we wanted to see you dancing burlesque? It's all probably not happening now, but.
I know, nothing is happening right now.
Oh,
I perform routinely in Denver, and there's burlesque festivals in all of the different states, all of the major cities. And you can just, you know, start Googling it and checking it out. And yes, I do have some of my burlesque online, especially my Me Too number, because that's my most popular.
Is that on your website?
It's not on my website. It's on my YouTube.
Okay, because I tried to look on your website and I didn't see it. And I thought, well, maybe I didn't dig deep enough.
Exactly. No, it's on YouTube, and I can send you the link too.
Where's your favorite festival?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. Vegas, you've got to love Vegas because it's Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
There's one, New Orleans, the history in New Orleans.
Whoa.
Yeah,
She danced at the House of Blues.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love New Orleans.
To be
We're
in New
only 3
Orleans.
hours. We're only 3 hours from Vegas, so whenever that's going on,
We'll drive down and check it out.
Ooh, yes, for sure.
I love seeing new things and trying new things. And I think we did see I think on our second wedding in Vegas, we went to a burlesque show, didn't we?
I don't remember much about that part of it. We were supposed to go to one.
It was a big party.
It was after the Twinkie cake.
That was after the Twinkie Ding Dong cake. Yeah.
It was classy.
We missed out.
We both dressed as Elvis and had Elvis marry us. And
Nice.
Yeah, it was a crazy. I think I remember going to a burlesque show. I thought you were there with me.
I was, but I just don't remember seeing any of it. Like I was distracted by somebody or something. Or whatever.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot about the dancing either, actually. So it'd be cool to reintroduce ourselves to it.
Yeah.
I bet I'd be good at it.
You'd be awesome at it. You'd be outstanding.
You could be a man prop like I've been.
Nice.
Just a man prop.
Yeah.
Ooh, that probably is fun.
Yeah.
You'd probably really like that.
You never know.
And so then you designed a lot of your brand kind of around the idea of dance. You have this choreographer for life choreographer. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Couple of different things. Yes, I designed it around burlesque because so many people cover are whole society encourages us to cover. There's so many taboo topics, whether it's, infidelity or sexual abuse or racism or sexism or whatever it is. We're all encouraged to cover. We're all encouraged to pretend. And as a corporate attorney for 10 years, I also found that I had to cover a lot of who I was. I had to play the role of being an attorney, that myself as my personality, I would be judged. Oh, you're too happy, you're too bouncy, you're too pretty, you're too young, you're too whatever it was. And I was judged unfairly and inaccurately. And the whole idea of burlesque is it's about stripping down to reveal what's underneath. And sometimes what's underneath is surprising. And that's what my brand is built around. Let's all strip down. Let's talk about the things that make us us. Let's move into the taboo. Let's move into our pain, into our fear, into our problems. And let's not pretend that it doesn't exist. When I strip down and show you who I am, you can love me or you can hate me, but I am in my truth. And that's where my power and my joy actually comes from.
That's pretty good.
I love that.
Thank you.
You should market that.
What an idea.
Such a good idea, honey. And you have the naked truth or something about is that another part of your brand?
Yes. I call it my naked self-worth. That's the idea that, yes, when we value ourselves for who we are and we understand our essence, our truth, then nothing can be taken away from us and we can always stand in our power and our worth. Because for men and women, we're all going to age. We're going to get fat. We're going to get unhealthy. We're going to break an arm at some point, not be able to do something. We're going to get gray. We're going to get crow's feet. We're going to lose our job. We're going to lose a relationship. All of those external things that we prop ourselves up with, we can lose. And then when we lose it, we move into that identity crisis. And I don't know who I am anymore. And I'm not worth it because I have 10 extra pounds on my body. And it's ridiculous and it's asinine. And when you have a sense of naked self-worth, you value yourself for who you are right now in every single moment, no matter what you have or don't have on the outside. And it's from that place that we find our worth, we find our happiness. We're able to roll with the punches and not constantly be taken down by a job loss or a relationship loss or a virus or riots. We stay in our power and then we're able to figure out what that most immediate next step is, and we can create change that way.
Yeah, you're talking about imperturbability, right? Nothing is going to rock you too much because you are in your center. And we're big proponents of self-love before you can love anybody else. Like, you really got to get in touch with that part of you. So I love that you're out there teaching that and coaching that and promoting that. We need more people that do that. And I can relate to you. I was also in corporate America for, I don't know how many years ago, but the same thing. Like, I'd lie about my age. I'd lie to say I was older because people would think I was too young to have that position. And I used my name Sam and often got ahead. And then the shock of me being a woman after someone met me in person was like, that actually helped me a lot in the corporate world. Anyway, there's a lot of weird things that we do as women, or like, I'd wear something that somebody thought was too revealing and I'd get, a talking to. So it was like, come on, the guys don't get the talking to. What if their shirt's unbuttoned one button too low? Like, come on.
I don't know if that's 100% true. I've been battling my whole career as an entrepreneur, being too pretty. So I don't think people take me seriously. They think I'm just, eye candy. Yeah.
You are pretty hot, babe.
Recognize me for my big brain.
And I don't know. I feel like women get judged more, or maybe we're judging each other and we're judging ourselves. And I feel like it's heavier for me, I feel like, than it is. Like, Pat's making light of it because I don't know that he's had to feel that really. No,
I mean, it starts off by men judging women and then women judging women based on men's critiques. So
this is a patriarchy bullshit.
Yeah. I'm not a fan.
Us either.
Yeah.
Let's so and then you have your book.
I do.
Tell us about your book. And you have a podcast. Like, you do so many things. I was like, where are we going to start with this conversation? There's so many things to get into. So
Oh, I love my book. It's called Flaunt, Drop Your Cover and Reveal Your Smart, Sexy, Spiritual Self. And
so yummy.
Oh, it is. It's so yummy. And, you just brought up the patriarchy, and that's exactly what it is. It's about revealing yourself. And when we lean into stereotypes, it's my belief that we can take them down. It's when we're constantly running and avoiding. Oh, I'm going to make you think I'm smart because I have brown hair, not blonde hair. Oh, I'm going to make you think, whatever it is. It's about leaning into that. Yeah, watch me. I can look like this and I can be smart too. I can be incredibly sexy and be a burlesque dancer, and I can be a kick-ass mom. I can do everything, and I'm going to lean into that and not dim my own light to make you happy. I'm here to trust my truth, to please me, and to do everything that I can. And that's what my book is about. It's, first of all, giving women permission to do that, and then giving them tools and some exercises to lean into that gently and comfortably so they can start creating change and not just all of a sudden show up one day completely different and rock everybody's world, but to take those little steps and piece at a time, shift the narrative and shift the conversation.
That's
Amen.
Good. I like that. So tell us a little bit about, like, how did this whole thing kick off? You said you were in corporate law, right?
I was.
And then what got you started? When did you start doing the burlesque dancing? How long ago was that?
I didn't do that. I just started that.
2012.
Yeah, I started that in 2012.
Okay. What kind of kicked off? So what set you on your path?
After I left corporate law, I was not happy there for a variety of reasons. I loved the research. I loved the analysis. I loved solving problems. What became very frustrating to me was I didn't feel like I was really creating change. I felt like I was cleaning up messes. And I wasn't changing people's behavior on the front end. I was just cleaning up the mess on the back end. Couple that with the fact that I had 2 kids within 22 months. Shawn was traveling all the time for work. And it was like, we can't both be working like this. Something has got to give. And I will be that piece that steps back. I will take care of some things at home. I will start exploring different modalities and different ways that I can create the change that I wanted to create from the time that I went to law school. It was about justice and fairness, and I'll step back and I'll figure some things out. So while I was at home, I ended up going back to school, and I got what amounts to an associate's degree. It was a 2-year program in hypnotherapy. I became certified to teach yoga. I just explored a whole bunch of different modalities, and I started testing things out one-on-one with my former colleagues, with other moms, with friends, just to kind of figure out what was going on. As part of that whole process, I was always working. I was always striving. I was always taking care of everything for everyone, pretty much at my own expense. And I really hit that point one afternoon teaching a boot camp class where I thought, I'm going to die. I've suffocated myself for so long, and I've got to start doing something for me. And I don't know what it is, but I need to start trying. And that's when I discovered pole dance. And then pole dance led to burlesque. And it was just me reclaiming my own value, saying, yes, I'm going to use, family funds for my dance class. Yes, I can get daycare for the kids because I deserve an hour to dance. Yes. And I was saying yes to me and yes to my fun again. And everything really started snowballing once I really reclaimed my value and my worth as a human.
And that's stepping into your bliss too, right? And magic things happen when you allow yourself that joy. It changes you, which then changes everybody around you. I believe that. I've felt that, seen that.
I want to know how the hypnotherapies worked out for you, Shawn.
I'm still hypnotized.
How is this for you, Shawn, as she was stepping into herself, really?
Well, there's
Their
actually a piece
power.
of the book, and I've read the book 4 times because I was a tech writer formerly, and so I was her first editor. But there's a section in there where she describes this unveiling of herself, really, and how this discovery happened. But that actually started with a boudoir shoot that she did for me.
Nice.
And I'm just a huge fan of her doing these things publicly, and it's never been an angst for me to see her dance or see her do pole dance. Watch her walk out the house in pole dance gear to go do pole fitness was wow.
Yeah.
Okay, you go, girl. And then to have the guys in the neighborhood say, "Oh, so Shawn has a pole in his basement studio where Lora does pole dancing," right? So, I should have no complaints, right? So it's been a joyous part of the journey for us, is watching her unveil and really uncover who she really wanted to be.
And blossom, and now she's helping other people do that.
Yeah, right.
Helping other people step into their power.
Yep.
But there's another story, right? You guys are working on a new book together. Tell us about that.
That is our infidelity story.
We have one too, by the way. I also was unfaithful. I had a number of emotional affairs when I was working in corporate America.
Make it sound like a lot. I think it was like 2.
I had 2. Well, still, that's still a number
Yeah.
of them. It's not just one.
Right.
So we have a little, and then we split up. So, and then got back together. But yeah, tell us yours.
Shawn, over the years, over 15 years of our marriage, had 5 different affairs, physical and 1 emotional, or however you categorize them, because there was such a mix.
Right.
Right. And I didn't know until 2 years ago. And I found out when one of the women sent a picture in the mail. And then I started going through the email and just kept finding more and more further back and further back. And yeah, it's been unbelievably traumatic. I had absolutely no idea along the way that any of this was happening. What's good about it, and it's awkward to say what's good about it, but it was that uncovering. Shawn was able to uncover and finally share everything about himself to me. I could see him, I could uncover myself, and it gave us the opportunity, probably as you guys can relate to start from square one and to rebuild, being so much wiser after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
How long had you guys been together so how long have you guys been married or together?
25 years in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we made it through, hopefully, the roughest part of that, but there's, a lot of aftermath that we continue to deal with, and we have tons of support. Finally found the best counselors on the planet, in our opinion, that help, but energy work, amazing, internal work for myself, really bizarre childhood that, I'd like to say I survived it, but really didn't.
Right.
Because, you have these vulnerabilities that you sort of lead in 2 different lives, and the vulnerabilities cause you to go in a direction you shouldn't have gone, or didn't want to go. And so, and really through all this work, I would say, just to bottom line up front, we're getting the marriage we've always wanted through this process. Right. And that's where we've done tremendous amount of work just on energy, on love, on language, on my dialogue, on my tapping into emotions, which is, as us guys would say, is really tough to do. So yeah. I thought I had anger and rage, and that was it, right? Maybe sadness.
Yeah.
Me too, actually. I'm more male that way, where just pissed off.
But you hide the sadness part,
yeah.
So.
Right.
You said no.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been, but it started around 2003, and it really started as me doing outreach to be validated. I was very frustrated at home, Lora, and we did these happiness timelines, and it was amazing to see hers was always peaked and always happy. Not surprising, because that's really her personality, and mine was low key or had dips in the timeline, taking very small minor events too hard and letting them fester for a week or longer and never getting to resolution, in my opinion. But a lot of this came about through parenting and kind of the discord that we had as parents. And a lot of
Talk
that.
more about that, like, because this isn't actually what's interesting is parenting is like the number one cause of all disagreements in marriages. I mean, parenting is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Thank goodness our children are grown up and they're doing great. But it was a rough ride. So talk about what that was like for you guys, you know, the parenting and different. I mean, we had very different ideas about how to parent. He wanted to spank. I was absolutely against that. You know, he wanted to let the kids be more free. And I really was very controlled. I mean, we definitely had our parenting.
Except I was right. She wishes we'd spanked. Now she's like,
I was like, well, there were a few years where I was like, yeah, we definitely should have.
Our son's 24. Is it too late to start spanking him?
That's funny. No, it was, I liked how you said the differences, because I was raised in like a stereotypically perfect home. My mom has a master's in child development. My grandma worked in schools. My great grandmother actually had her teacher's certificate in the early 1900s. I was an only child. My mom was an only child. She was like, I'm an only great grandchild on both sides. In my family, it's all kids and child development and support and talking it out and, you know, peace and love. So I had a very Pollyanna, happy, kids don't bug me, crying doesn't bug me, nothing bugs me. Let's all experiment and be free and happy. And I was very secure in the way that I was raised. And then Shawn can speak to his childhood, but basically he was in foster care for a while. He had a very traumatic childhood with very controlling situation. And how do you find common ground between such vastly different points of view? You don't. I mean, flat out, you don't. And it was hard.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, the early discord. So Laura and I, when we first met, we had an interview, and we talked about everything under the sun, and just seemed like, wow, sparks are flying. We're really compatible, and we're in the same swim lanes, all the same interests, fitness and outdoors and travel and success and, you know, whatever. But we never talked about parenting. We never talked about spanking or discipline or control. And I come from, you know, a very bizarre background where you might have to go cut your own switch, right? Or pull your pants down to get spanked. And a lot of child abuse, frankly. So, you know, and there's a lot of forgiveness for me on that. My parents are different. Not really my dad, but, you know, my mom, different generation. So I'm not going to delve into all of that, but what it became for me was, well, shouldn't we not let them, doesn't no mean no, you know, when with a toddler or whatever. I'm negotiating with a 2-year-old, and I wanted to defer to Lora a lot because of what she just said, her background, the way she was raised, amazing women in her life. Even the men, you know, they weren't beaters or disciplinarians necessarily, but, you know, now I wasn't really built to negotiate with a 2-year-old. And we did a lot of that and did it with some help. You know, we went to Love and Logic, great program for parents. But we did a couple other seminars that, to me, they're trying to change your environment. And, you know, take Play-Doh. Where's Play-Doh used in your house, right? When does sippy cups become open cups of milk? And I had a very low tolerance, and still probably have a very low tolerance for those kinds of messes, right? Play-Doh over the carpet versus Play-Doh over the hardwood can mean all the difference for me. For Lora, it was no big deal ever. And it was like, wow, how's that? You know, and we're not compatible in this decision making with raising our kids. So it became, well, Shawn needs to go to anger management. And when I went to anger management, you know, the two different counselors, they just tried to change your environment, not really get into, you know,
what's causing the anger,
my fear, my shame. So it was really something in the last 2 years I've finally been doing that work, and that's unbelievable transformation for me.
And really hard. So my hat's off to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of tough moments, believe me. Yeah,
I'm sure. And unfortunately, I feel like once you start that work, I don't think you ever get to stop. Like you just keep digging and digging, and there's more shit and more shit. And the good news is it gets better and easier, I
Yeah,
think. But
It's drier on the bottom and doesn't smell as bad.
yeah,
exactly.
It's still down there.
I mean, I'm a lot like you, Shawn. It's funny because I feel like I had like the best childhood ever, but I have very low tolerance for messes. Or,
Wow.
do you know, like I had a little bit of both of you, but I was always trying to convince Pat, like, my parents were great and you should just do and my sister and I are great. So you should just do what I say.
Yeah. I had a brother that at the time that was in jail and
Incarcerated.
a sister that committed suicide. So Sam,
I was like, maybe I should take the steering wheel.
yeah,
But
Yeah,
that's absolutely not the right answer either,
Right.
right? Because we have to parent together. I
Right.
think the best thing we learned. What's the best thing you guys learned? Well, I don't know. Did you feel like you have you have 2 boys? Is that right?
Yes.
Both in college, also.
Mhm.
Whoop whoop!
I know. Yay!
Yay for all 4 of us.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, do you guys have anything that ended up working with your parenting with your kids that you feel like, yeah, this one thing that we learned really helped us be parents, or not really?
I
can
don't
see
think
Laura's
so,
shaking her head.
because it's interesting when you look back on things, and again, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
what actually worked for us at the time, it's sad to say because it was hard for us as a couple, but he traveled all the time.
Mhm.
So more than half the time it was just me at home with the kids anyway, and I did take the steering wheel, and I think that helped us not be in conflict, but it sure didn't pull us together or unite us at all.
Yeah, and I would add that you can point to a lot of things. Love and logic will teach you that there's consequences, right? So you parent around the consequence, so the children understand there's going to be a natural consequence. When I'm growing up, it's get the hell knocked out of you. For our kids, it might be go to your room, or you don't get to play with that toy for a while, or no toys, or whatever. But none of that to me was the single nugget. To me, the single nugget was, in honor of what Lora did, she allowed our boys to express themselves. So our younger son, just 2 days ago, whatever, he's in a new apartment at his college, getting ready for next year, and he just can't stand it all of a sudden, right? And he realizes he might have made a mistake, and he listed off like 7 emotions that
Wow.
he was feeling around that. I'm like, that's not me, or wasn't me, and God bless all of this for letting him express and go deep and understand, because now he's balanced, and in a couple days he's pretty resilient about it, and he processed those emotions. So she's always never said big boys don't cry, and never, hey, quit it, walk it off, whatever. All these things that we often have done as parents to boys. She allowed them to express their emotions and let it out, and in a safe way, right? And then work through that. I think, to me, that's a single nugget to perfection as a parent, if there's anything close to that. So
Yeah.
How did you deal with that when she was letting them express themselves? Were you like just eating your like insides out?
yes.
Like he's
There's
acting like a little lily, or like just the manly
Well-
bullshit that happens.
Rub some dirt on it.
right.
Fine.
And it's a great question, because there's so many events that just flash through my mind. Leaving scout camp early was really painful, and I felt shame around that as a dad. Well, why does my son got to leave early? Because he can't stand it anymore. And we had not the most favorable scout experiences, which I've reflected on afterwards. But in the moment, it was really hard. And watching somebody cry in softball or baseball or whatever in front of everyone else, and they get to cry it out where everyone else has to rub dirt on it. The boys wound up really tough. They're amazing. But to me, I see how the benefit of getting to your emotions just helps you balance, sitting around the table and something happens, or watching the unrest on the news today. The boys are a lot more resilient because of it.
Yeah.
And not, all in knots all the time. So,
And that seems counterintuitive, right? To let somebody,
amazing. Right.
like cry it out, and then that's going to help them be more resilient, even though I think we've been teaching men for years that's not. You can't show any
Right.
weakness. And I think, thank God that's starting to change.
But if you think about that, though, like, let's just take that as an example. Your kid crying and then none of the other kids are crying, and it doesn't have anything to do with the kid. Kid has no shame in that moment. It has to do with us, with the dad, embarrassed of our kid.
Our reaction to that is paramount, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't react well or know how to react.
Yeah. And that's how we'd fight,
Mhm.
Yeah. We had this, our son, we put him on a soccer team. He really was never interested in sports, at all. He took a dance class that he kind of liked, but anyway, he was on this soccer team, and we were friends with the coach, and the coach finally said to us, I don't think this is working. And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, well, just come to the practice. So we came to the practice and it will look fine for a minute. And then Jake's like,
they're doing a scrimmage, and they sticks Jake out there, and Jacob kind of jogs behind the pack. That's all, like, and the little kids just running a pack around the ball, kicking each other in the shins. It's that age.
yeah. And all of a sudden
Jacob just wanders off, and then he's down on his hands and knees, and he's like, guys, come here.
I got a grasshopper.
And then all the kids leave the
ball, and now they're surrounded this grasshopper, and we're like, oh.
Yeah.
And we were, I don't think I felt a ton of embarrassment because I'm not really into sports, but Patty that was really more mourning for him, like he was so sad. I don't know if he felt, did you feel shame?
No, that's a bad example, because that was just funny. And I
Well,
thought soccer was a wimpy sport anyway. So, but I remember he talked me into coaching baseball. He really wanted to play baseball, and he said, I don't know if he wanted to play. I probably told him, I had gloves and bats, and I'd take him out of the backyard, and he's like, well, I'll play if you coach. So I signed up to coach or help coach, and he wanted to quit after like the third practice. And I'm like, you're going to sit in the car while I coach, because I committed to help coach these guys. And then he'd just sit out in the car screaming and crying. And eventually they told me they didn't need my help that bad. And we were both able to leave the team.
But there was some mourning for him, like, oh my gosh. And our daughter wasn't into sports either. He was really excited, about having this boy that was going to be doing the sports. And then Claire actually got into soccer. Anyway,
she got into soccer.
It's funny how
good.
Yeah. It's funny how you have those things that.
I think the other thing that as our kids go through the various phases, it might be perceived today that we fail them in some ways, because we try to give them 5 ribbons and everybody wins and everybody gets a trophy. And we don't have them understand what loss means, right? And how to deal with it and process it. So then when suddenly, their phone gets taken away as a teenager, they have a 4-year-old temper tantrum. That's a tough moment for them if they haven't learned how to sort of process that. We didn't have a whole lot of that, fortunately, because our boys seemed to understand the bumper rails the older they got a lot easier. Started getting themselves up to go to school, and getting dressed properly. But we had moments where our older son was going through sensory integration disorder. And for the life of us, we couldn't figure out why he couldn't wear blue jeans anymore. So he went all the way.
What did you say it was? Tell us.
Yeah, well, we all have sensory integration. Laura can explain it better, probably.
Yeah, it's a form of one of the sensory processing disorders, either being avoidant towards stimulation or seeking out more stimulation. And both of our kids were sensory avoidant, where, the tag on the back of your shirt, like for a quote unquote normal person, you're not really going to notice that it's there. But for our kids, the way they described it is it's like sitting underneath a strobe light. You can't ignore it. The sensation is so strong. So all of their attention goes towards the tag or the blue jeans or the socks or the shoes. And both of our kids were very sensory avoidant when they were young. And that it just makes parenting even more difficult, because you should be able to say, put on your shoes. Well, for our kids, it was physically uncomfortable for them to put on their shoes and to wear shoes. So where with, you might say, put your shoes back on and we're not going in, putting your shoes back on is really asking them to do something that is significant for them.
Yeah. Where consequences, well, you're going to go to school without clothes on then.
They're like, okay.
Good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, that must have been difficult.
There's a guy that lives down the road from you all in Boulder named Philip McKernan, and one of the things he says is if if you're worried that you haven't screwed your kids up, what's a good paraphrase of it? He's like, if you think that you haven't screwed up your kids, just forget that notion right now. You've definitely screwed them up, and you're going to continue screwing them up. All you can do is try your best to undo that
and love them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kelly Flanagan, I think, says something like that as well.
Maybe it's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and his wife are they're both psychologists, and his wife's a child psychologist, and they're like, we screwed up our kids. I don't know how the hell we did it, but we somehow screwed them up.
Yeah, I think that's Kelly. Yeah. Kelly Flanagan says that. Where, all we can say to our kids is we love you so much, and we will pay for your counseling for the rest of your life. So, like, whatever we screwed up, like maybe somebody can help you undo it.
Yes.
It's funny too, because we talked about that comparison in the beginning where Sam was putting her parents up on a pedestal and then saying, well, yours must have done something wrong. And then later when hers teetered on the pedestal, and she started looking at my parents, she's like, your parents aren't so bad after all. I don't know what, so
yeah, everything comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the that was a good sidebar, but I want to go back to the infidelity. That was
big sidebar.
Big sidebar. Well, I mean, parenting shit. Yeah. So, you were talking about you being disagreements, and Shawn, then how did you get to the place where you became unfaithful? Do you think?
So it born out of that, I was feeling like I was the bad guy, and I spent a lifetime trying to avoid getting in trouble with the principal, get in trouble with the police, because I had home to face and the wrath of my mom if I got in trouble. So if you're scared straight, it was living in our household. And now to be told I'm the bad guy when I didn't feel like I was the bad guy or that I was crazy as a parent. And why can't we figure this out together, whether it's open milk or Play-Doh? These are just examples. There's a lot of things, right?
Right.
But the point is, I started talking to a friend who, I thought was validating me and that I'm not crazy as a parent. And it, turned into probably fortunate that it was long distant, even though I could say that's unfortunate because it may have ended faster than it did, because there was a lot of different times when we would be together and then it would become more than it was supposed to be, right? And it should have been a friend telling me that Laura's not crazy. It should have been a friend reaffirming that my relationship is worth more than sort of the selfishness that it became, probably for both of us. And but it was really feeling alone, feeling abandoned again, as I learned in the last couple of years. Didn't really identify that back then, but I just went where it felt good, that someone else realizes I'm not crazy in this parenting game, and I'm not alone, and it became more than it was supposed to be and crossed the line.
So would you say that some of it was also centered a little bit around, I mean, you've got, like you said, Lora has this, alleged perfect upbringing or whatever with all of this huge support group and then she's also like kind of transforming herself and rediscovering herself and all of that. And then you've got on your side where you're kind of just masking everything, right? And feeling like there's because I know that there were times in the first 10 years where I would look at Sam and think maybe I wasn't worthy or something. And then, maybe some of that came from, any thoughts of, I don't know. I'm just asking a question very poorly, but.
What was the question, baby?
Well, do you think you experienced any of those types of thoughts or emotions, I guess?
The unworthiness?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Lora felt that after The disclosure, of course, still deals with that a little bit. But for me, back when this all started, there was definitely an unworthiness, right? I'm using too many smarts and too much drive to try to avoid all that I'd been through. You know, I wet the bed till I was 14 years old. I was in high school when I stopped wetting the bed. And, you know, I buried that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a guy, you're playing football, you're with the guys, and my first shower might be in the locker room, you know? And it's like, Jesus, you know, I had one pair of pants when I was in the 8th grade, and it wasn't like it was a pair of 501 blue jeans. It was a pair of red corduroys.
Yeah.
And I washed them twice a week, right? And I'm just like, talk about you know, I did this shame album. It was unbelievable to go through. And this kind of stuff, when Lora and I, she was the only one that I really trusted to love me. And then we started having problems. And I just felt, I'm coming unhinged. I really felt unworthy, and I'm looking for validation, and I'm going somewhere else. And it was always right here if I just could have done the work back then. But there's a great saying, you are where you're supposed to be, right? And so for whatever reason, it's now and it wasn't then, and all this damage happened. But, you know,
But it's okay.
just kind of stand in your truth and try to own it. And, you know, full disclosure was tough that, you know, because all these emotions, I didn't know how to do that yet. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, boy, that's a good question. Unworthiness, a lot of people feel it, and on both sides.
I think everybody on the planet feels unworthiness. It's like something that we're born with that we can't, that I don't know. I mean, maybe there are people who've shaken their unworthiness completely, but I have to work on it every day.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things.
Yeah. And it's tough too when you see your own kids doing it too, and you're like, you know, we try so hard to like steer them down a path, you know, and they make a right and go, I'm gonna go down this one. But the thing with unworthiness too is that it subconsciously kind of leads to self-sabotage, right?
Yeah, it totally does. Shawn, if you were going to go back and give yourself some advice to yourself in those days, like what do you think you might say to yourself?
I could answer
knowing
that.
everything that you know. I'm not asking you. We'll ask you next if you really want to answer. But what would you say to yourself, you know?
That's loaded.
Yeah, I know.
I actually did, and I'm preparing to do. You know, I have these ages of my childhood that I'm trying to recover, where I left. I left the little boy behind because I didn't want to deal with that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
My 6-year-old self, my 10-year-old self, my 14-year-old self, all traumatic moments. And so I don't really, you said you're learning who yourself is, right? You're constantly trying to figure out who you are and stand in your truth. And so I've done some work around that. And one of the, just like you said, you go back and you hug this person, you talk to this person through this exercise that counselors helped me do. But if I could, you know, sort of summarize all the work we've done, whether it's Abraham Hicks or some of the energy work I've done, or just learning to ground. I mean, every time I do a reading, somebody says you should get lava malas, lava bracelets. I need to.
I was going to ask you about your malas. You both have them on. That's beautiful.
And grounding my energy really helps me. I think study my worthiness and my value, and realize that, you know, I've done tremendous amount of good, and yeah, you caused some damage because you didn't want to be a bad guy. I'll show you a bad guy, right? And now that's, you know, backfired. But really, what it did is caused me to go do the work I wished, like you said, I could have gone back and told this young boy that it's going to be okay. You know, you're unbelievable in your value, and what you're going to do in this life is you're going to change the world. So keep your chin up, you know, but also cry it out now. Cry like a warrior. Right then, you know, let it be, and you'll get to the bottom of that, and then you can move on. But I didn't. cry it out. I've always been emotional and cried a lot, but I didn't know I was crying.
Right.
See a movie and I just, have a trash can moment, right? And today I realize, holy cow, Lora and I are just watching Stranger Things, and Elle, the main character, she says she lost her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this epiphany. I just got something, as Lora always says. And I realized that I lost my mother, but she didn't die.
Right.
Which maybe is harder.
Right. So I didn't process or grieve that, and catches up with you.
So when I said I could answer that, it was like all the work that you've done over the last few years and that you're still doing and you probably intend to do going forward as well, is the stuff that we, like all the things that I learned in the second half of our marriage is what I would love to go back. That's kind of why we wrote our book, was love to go back and teach the first half of our, myself. Yeah. But the timing wasn't right. We weren't ready, obviously, then. And like Sam said earlier, kudos to you for, starting to peel back the onion now. But if somebody had started working on that onion in 2007, you might not have been ready.
We talk about it all the time, and I've kicked myself thinking, well, just give me a nugget. Why wasn't the right counselor there or somebody? Don't change my environment. Change. Tell me about emotions. Tell me that they're in my torso here and they're all over the place, and not just anger in my head.
So Lora,
rage. Yeah.
Well, and
Well, how about the fact that it might have taken Lora 9 years of working on herself in order to handle with grace the situation, right?
Right. Yeah. Because if I would have found out pretty much at any other time, the response would have been completely different.
Yeah. And I want you to talk about that. And I do think we can't really, even looking at our marriage, I don't know that I would appreciate how wonderful our marriage is if we hadn't been through such crappy times too, right? So it's one of those things where the timing of and what happens to us makes us who we are. We kind of have to hit rock bottom sometimes to force us to do the work. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, but I'm glad you made it there, Shawn. And Lora, let's talk about you. What kind of a soul do you have that you can take this news that was completely a surprise and you guys and somehow process it, and you're still together, and how did you do that? Because, and I think a lot of people would feel too ashamed. Even if you still loved Shawn, I watch couples, they break up because she feels too ashamed that he did that, or vice versa, right?
The hurt manifested as anger and then
rage, and then so talk about what happened with you.
Yeah, there were several different layers in that. And yes, to everything that you said. When I first found out, I found out about one. And when I found out about that, the knee-jerk reaction was, this is over. We are done. We don't go through that. Done. Then I found out it's not like it's another relationship. It's not like he's in love with somebody or he's trying to cultivate a relationship. It was 5 different women overlapping over all of this time. And the more I found out about it, the more I found out about the different women and the different timing, it became bizarre to me and it didn't make sense. And I kept thinking, this isn't just some horny guy. This isn't somebody falling in love with somebody else. This is bizarre. Who does this? Because Shawn's this really upstanding person. He's kind, he's considerate, he's loving, he's honest, he's genuine. This completely doesn't make sense. And the more I found out, the more bizarre it became and the more curious I got. Mm-hmm. Why would somebody like Shawn do this? It doesn't make sense. You've got a great wife, you've got a great family, you've got a great support system, you've got all of these people who love you, and none of this makes sense. So ironically, the worse it got, the more curious I became and the more willing I was to stay and to say, what is really going on? Because for the most part, I always thought we had a fantastic relationship. We had a ton of fun together. We love to be in the mountains and hike and travel and play. So if everything is good, and if we have, of course we have fights.
Of course.
Of course.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, it is. But for the most part, things were really good. And then and I knew his past, like he said, he trusted me with the knowledge of his abuse and his, the bedwetting and the foster care and the poverty and the evictions and all of that. So I'm knowing him as a human, and I'm knowing our happiness of our life, and it doesn't make sense. And I do love him, and I did love him. And my strength is I am a healer, and I feel very deeply. And his pain, the pain for somebody like Shawn, for somebody with his soul to go out to these other women who were, and this is not like they weren't quality people. They're not really going to help you. Why are you there? It's like when you look at your kids and you say, what are you thinking? And I could look at that and I think, what were you thinking and what was really wrong? And we've got to get to the bottom of this, because this doesn't make sense.
Was there any part of it? So, I mean, I think one of we try to tell our kids that everything that happens to you, no matter what it is, you can accept some percentage of responsibility in it. What would you say that you missed, or maybe something that you were doing, or was there any changes that you decided to make in yourself to help the relationship and get around that corner?
Me or Shawn?
You.
Me. Yeah, There was a lot of what I missed, and it's funny because we go back around, there's this whole great book that women can't hear what men don't say. Mm-hmm. Shawn never said anything. Yeah. I never heard anything because he never said it. Mm-hmm. Now, I do not take responsibility for that. And I understand that I didn't cause this. However, I didn't hear that. Mm-hmm. And ironically, I don't know if I could have heard it unless I knew what I know now.
Right.
You know what I mean? But what I have shifted is I am trying to be more conscientious about, I thought Shawn was perfect. Mm-hmm. I thought he was this king, this brilliant, godlike man. And
like you, honey.
Yes, exactly. And I'm trying to be more aware of the fact that he is an emotional being. He is not perfect. I really, truly did see him as perfect. And I'm really trying to take that awareness that he is in pain, that if he is quiet, maybe he's in pain and he's not saying something.
Yeah.
If he's angry, maybe he's not really angry. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe I can approach him differently. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers the question.
It totally does. I mean, it goes back to the thing that you said a few minutes ago about curiosity, kind of where you just weren't curious before. Wonder why he's not saying anything. Oh, he must be perfect. And
right. Yeah, we have this. It came up. He used to get up in the morning sometimes and leave for work really, really early. And I would think, this poor guy, he's running off to work and he can't even stay awake to help me with the kids or to say goodbye. This is so sad. And I would just assume he was overworked, and I would not call him at work, and I would not text him at work because he was up so early overworking. So I would be at home being like, oh, this poor guy, he's working and I won't bug him. Well, he got up and left the house because he was pissed off at something, and he'd be sitting at his desk thinking, if she loves me, she'll text. If she loves me, she'll call. And we were completely missing each other and completely doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And now I am more awake and aware to that. And I will ask, are you busy, or do you need me to back off, or is something the matter and do we need to talk?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that are now in the toolbox that we didn't have back then, and you don't learn it all from just one person or counselor or whatever. Yeah. We've been fortunate to go through a lot of different scenarios, paid a lot of money for various help, and
us too.
Yeah, I mean, we went through a fair recovery, and we had learned about the imago dialogue at one point, where there's just something that's so meaningful to you that you need to set up a sacred spot and really have this eye to eye And we also learned through another one, your left eye is your receptor. If you're looking at your left eye, right?
But we wouldn't do it.
And we didn't, we weren't doing that very well. And so through this process, we learned really to sit down and set these big topics aside and also plan it. Not just, hey, we need to talk, right? And then she rainstorms on me and I'm going to my turtle shell, which is another
imago thing.
Process, right?
Yeah.
But we would imago it and go through the process and really try to finish all the steps to it. And we got to a lot of resolution in that and understanding. And it was safe. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't yelling. I learned how to do belly breathing to reduce some anger that, would just fire up right away. And who knew, really push your belly out as you're breathing. It's not just meditative breathing. It's a technique. So all these tools that help us today, could they have helped back then? Sure. But, we've had to have known them and actually use them properly. Like imago dialogue, we learned, we didn't use it.
Yeah. We've learned it. We tried it. Every time I do the repeat back, Pat's like, I just said that. He doesn't have any patience for it. But you know what? It's good to know that we have that tool. Should we have to have a conversation that we're not able to have and it's not working, we can pull that out. I'm glad to hear that it's working, that it has worked and does work for you guys. We know some other couples that's their go-to.
So now you're writing this whole story in a book. Yeah?
Yes.
How's that working, writing the book together?
We have not really collaborated on that. I wrote pieces of it and then I'm, kind of telling Shawn, okay, this is the piece to work on. And then he's kind of been writing his story. And right now it's more in a jumbled form, which is fine because you kind of need to get all the stories out or at least the way we process, get it all out there. Then we can organize and fill it in. But I think it's another layer of therapy.
I like to work with an outline. Laura doesn't. So
yeah. That's like us. We wrote our book together as well, and we almost there was about struggling really hard in our relationship
halfway through the time that we spent writing the book. So if you say, I don't know, let's say we spent 100 hours, around hour 50, we were already planning a follow-up to this book called How Writing a Book with Your Partner. How Writing a Book About Relationships Almost Ruined Our Relationship. And,
exactly.
But what saved it for us was we were just so different. We would throw a topic out and we just started writing it from our own perspective, and then we just made the book He Said, She Said. So
yes,
and it's incredible how different. Like the chapter is love yourself, and it's black and white as far as the two, what I wrote versus what she wrote. So
yeah, or any of it, or even like how we met.
So that's my tip for you guys. Maybe just write your own story around the topic.
Yeah, we're going to use our tools for this.
Yeah, just know exactly.
I think one of the things, there's so many books, there's so many great lessons, love and respect. Women want to feel loved predominantly, men want to feel respected predominantly. What does that really sound like? It happens in small ways where disrespect happens and then the man's stung from that, or the man doesn't show love, so how do you show love? Learn the 5 languages of love. That's a good lesson. So many things that you can use, but to me, the biggest thing is to practice. And I'm a sports guy, so we practice every day. Laura dance, she practices all the time. Why don't we practice this love, right? Why don't we practice our dialogue with each other? I mean, and that's the hardest part, is on a daily course. You're running fast, trying to get dinner or whatever. And it's been actually the nice thing about COVID-19, I'm working from home. We're able to practice more routinely because I'm around now during the day. And that's been enjoyable, fortunately, and not a discord. But I just really, practice makes perfect. All of our dialogue, our tools, and just showing and expressing love and staying in alignment with each other more routinely.
Yeah, and ourselves, really, right?
Yeah,
right.
That's what's funny, or not funny, but like interesting about that whole thing is that we come into relationships and then we have kids and we become parents, and sometimes the only guidelines we have are, I'm not doing it that way. That's it.
Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah, for no other reason.
yeah.
That gut instinct.
Man, I can't believe that it's already been an hour. I could talk. I have 100 more questions.
Yeah.
She does too.
I do. So maybe we can have a follow-up one.
She also has a small bladder, so fortunately.
I don't think it's actually that small because I feel like when I pee, it's a lot, but I just have to go. I think it's maybe I drink too much water. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm actually good. I don't actually have to pee right now. How about that?
Stop
Hey.
the presses.
Stop
Not
the
even
presses.
true, I guarantee it.
So where can people find you? Shawn, you're mostly working in legal and aerospace and
Right. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Shawn's on LinkedIn. Lora, how, this is your shameless plug period. Just give it.
Oh, I love shamelessly plugging. Yes.
Yeah.
My website is Lora Cheadle, and my name is spelled Lora, which is different. There's a singer-songwriter by the same name with the other spelling. So LoraCheadle.
Perfect.
I am primarily on Facebook. I run the Flaunt Flock, which is a Facebook group for women who are really interested in delving into that self-love and uncovering all the bullshit that we wear. So
I'm
find me
joining.
there. Oh, yay. We have fun. And I'm also on YouTube. My burlesque is on YouTube. A lot of great meditations, fitness, yoga, fun stuff. So LoraCheadle.com, Flaunt Flock on Facebook, or just regular Facebook is fine too.
And you do one-on-one coaching or classes, or what all do you have on your website that you offer?
Oh, I'm glad you said that because right now I've got a couple of really fun things. I've got a bundle of joy gift pack because we're birthing our new identity, and it's got hypnosis, virtual how-to lap dance class, and oh yeah, it's fun, and how to increase your intuition. I do 90-day group coaching programs. I do individual one-on-one sessions. And right now, because the world is crazy, I've got a 30-day program where you get literally a 3-minute meditation, a 5-minute workout, and a 2-minute journal prompt. So yes, you can find your center in 10 minutes a day.
Fantastic. Well, I hope our audience reaches out to you, the ones that need your love and your guidance. And I just want to thank you both for being so vulnerable and authentic and standing in your truth and allowing us to hear that, because I know that it will help and heal other people as well.
I agree.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks for having us.
thanks for being with us. Yay.